fans, my name is Taylor, and welcome back to Above the Yellow Line, the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. Today, we have Adam Lucas back on the channel, and we're going to talk about recapping the Hollywood Casino 400, get some updates and hot takes, talking mainly about F1 and NASCAR as they competed this weekend for viewership. And finally, we are going to go into our preview of the Xfinity 500, the Martinsville Speedway race. Guys, I'm so excited. There's going to be chaos. A lot of spooky stuff we'll talk about as it is a Halloween race. So buckle up, and Adam, are you ready?
Let's get to it.
All right, so first off, recapping the Hollywood Casino 400 at Kansas Speedway, the results. Adam, are you surprised with the results at all?
I'll tell you what, really was shocked with Kyle Busch's performance on Sunday. Really shocked.
Yeah, we'll get into that because I have a bone to pick. We'll talk about it. But Larson wins. This is his third straight race in a row winning, and now 9 points races total that he has won. And fun facts, he is the second driver to win 3 races in a row, twice in one season since Dale Earnhardt in 1987. And he also surpasses Jeff Gordon in the most laps led during a 36 race season, which is quite honestly incredible. No one thought you could outperform Jeff Gordon, and here we are. But the rest of the top 10 are as follows. We have Elliott in second, Harvick, Kurt Busch, Hamlin, Byron, Truex Jr., Bell, Logano, and then Austin Dillon in 10th, which is pretty impressive for Austin Dillon. Adam, anyone we want to point out here or talk about real briefly before we go into our points battle for the Above the Yellow Line crew, because that shifted a little bit.
It did shift quite a bit. In all honesty, the driver you just mentioned, Austin Dillon, bringing home a top 10, a little surprised. Always knocking on the door for a top 10, finally broke through, it feels like, for the first time in a little bit of a while. But that really did shock me that he got a top 10.
That whole team, Reddick obviously has been in the spotlight these past few weeks, so it's good to have another team member, Austin Dillon, obviously, step into the top 10 to show that the whole team as a whole is performing really well. But those are your top 10. The rest of the performances, the rest of the lineup was on the screen for you. Now let's go into our points. So, Adam, your points right now, you have 37 points with Chase Elliott as your winner. Garage pick was Denny Hamlin. Then we went to Dom, and he basically didn't really extend his lead by much because he has 45 points. I caught up with 35 points, and Zachary Bell is behind by 1 point to the lead with 44. It is a tight, close battle between the people who will win this, which is probably Dom and Zach. Adam, you could still make a comeback. The other two just have to have really bad the next 2 races, and you have a chance. Do you think you can do it? Mathematically, I don't actually know if it's possible. I haven't done it yet.
Well, if my championship pick stays true, then there is a slight possibility on the outside chance, if the moon is right and the sun sets properly, that I may get the dub and take the championship. But I'm not holding my breath to it. As long as I can beat you, that'll be a win for me.
See, it'll be quite the embarrassment if on my own show I come in last. But I'm okay. I will accept it. I've made some bad calls this season with my race winning picks, but if we're looking at our brackets, though, things are a little interesting with our brackets because right now, I think Dom or Zach don't have a full set of the championship 4, and they already have 2 drivers that are out of the mix or kind of are in a must-win situation. So they're in a rocky position. Adam, I think you have the best chance out of all of us. So fingers crossed for you. Obviously, I want to beat you, but fingers crossed for you that the points work out in your favor for our brackets. But let's talk about these driver points. Now, we're going to preview them more when we go to our race winning picks because we got to talk about the odds and everything. But Jogan's Racing and Penske bombed this weekend, in my opinion. Logano was able to make a comeback to 9th. Of course, he had early issues. Blaney wrecked out with 42 to go in the race around that. And yet again, though, with his points cushion at Texas, he was able to only fall behind the cutoff line by 1 point, which was impressive. I don't know how he did it, but I think the reason is because Kyle Busch. Here's now where we're going to talk about him. He had many issues during this race, very early issues, and he seemed to just kind of, I don't want to use the word give up because Kyle Busch is a driver. He will drive angry. He doesn't give up. And he also will say his car is killed when it's probably killed, or maybe it's not, but he'll still race the crap out of the thing. This weekend, I didn't see the drive from him. And I'm asking, I guess right now, out of what could have been if he kept pushing himself farther? Do you think he would have been better in points? Do you think the outcome would still be the same?
I honestly don't think anything else would have changed. His car was pretty mangled after hitting the right side several times. Those cars, they are so aero sensitive. You can only hit the wall. You get one little scrape. That's about it. You get anything more than a scrape on the right side, it's going to be a long day. And I think Kyle basically did kill the right side of his car, and he was able still to get the most out of it. We know he's never going to give up. He's always going to give it 100% all the time. He might sound like he's not going to on the radio, but I think he uses that more as a technique to help himself, get a little more from down within. I wouldn't buy that he gave up necessarily. I think he was pushing the car as far as it could go, even though the car couldn't give 100%. If the car was given 75%, he was still giving it 100% to get that 75%.
I think as well, he's a driver in the car where, me too. If someone's not driving the way I would want them to when I'm behind them on the road, I might yell or something in the car. I think he just needs to let out some aggression or anger. Of course, if you heard the famous clip from the weekend where he's just screaming on his radio, it's just frustration, right? You're in the playoffs, you won a championship, and then just crap hits the fan, So it was frustration, but I would say, I don't want to use the word give up because I think that's a strong word, but I think he just kind of accepted what was happening and he did the best he could.
I truly believe that as well. When you're given the circumstances you're given, sometimes you just have to eat the sandwich and go with it. And that's what Kyle did truly on Sunday.
He ate the sandwich and went with it.
Oh yes. There's a fun adjective you can add to the beginning of sandwich. It starts with a S. I'll let you all figure that one out. But that's the kind of sandwich he had to eat on Sunday, and he had a clean plate. Moving on to the next one.
Adam, I really appreciate your analogies. It makes the show just so much more fun, and it gives me more to just share with everybody else. I can add to my vocabulary a little bit, but gosh, that's my new favorite thing. I'm going to add that to my list of favorite quotes. But with this being said, you talked about the cars and how they're really touchy, I guess is the word I'm going to use. Speaking of these cars, this is the last time we'll see them with the 550 horsepower package with high downforce. Adam, I know we're very opinionated about this, to say the least. But do you want to say any parting words with this package, or do you want to talk about it a little bit more? Pros and cons.
To hell with you, 550 horsepower. Goodbye.
That's it.
That's it. That's the quote.
Yeah, this goes right into our race ratings, above or below the yellow line. You all know how it works. 50 is on the line. That means it was in a race that was okay. You don't love it. You don't hate it. Of course, below the line is bye, see you later. Above the yellow line is what we want. That means it's a decent race. We really enjoyed watching it. Or maybe we were just like, it was good. So with this package, I've been vocal about it. I don't like it. I think passing with this package is so hard on these tracks. I feel like the racing isn't as good. I don't know. I just don't really enjoy this. And I'm hoping when we move to the next gen car, we see things get better, is all I can say without getting too animate about this. So, Adam, all this being said, all my aggression kind of kept within today. What would you give this race and why?
So, with Kansas being in the playoffs and this being a playoff race, there was quite a bit of playoff drama. Mm-hmm. That's what got my race rating to above the yellow line at 57 out of 100.
Oh.
The only reason it's 57 and not 47 is because it was a playoff race and there was quite a bit of drama. Kyle Busch, for instance, was one of them. Keselowski's early race dramas as well. Martin Truex Jr., to name another playoff driver who had a little drama, lots and lots and lots of drama. So that drama did add to my rating, which pushed it above the yellow line.
One thing when you mentioned that I just realized is we have a lot of tracks in the playoffs that I don't think a lot of NASCAR fans enjoy watching now. I mean, Richmond was one that people are kind of iffy on. Vegas, Kansas, these tracks, and Texas Motor Speedway obviously was a huge debate when we had that race last week. These tracks are amplified by the playoffs because of the drama. And I think that was strategic to place them in the playoffs if you can't place them anywhere else, because you want them to have better ratings. You want them to be exciting. And with this race, like Adam, it would have been below the yellow line for me, just because without the playoff drama, definitely a below the yellow line race. However, because I feel generous, but also not that much, I'm putting it at a straight up 50%. I didn't necessarily enjoy the racing I watched. Not being able to pass for me was frustrating. Seeing the drivers struggle with that. However, the playoff drama, like Adam said, really did add to this race. But yeah, a lot of issues. Yeah.
I will say one thing though about Kansas Speedway. In all honesty, Kansas Speedway is one of my favorite tracks. And actually, hard to believe, but a little fun fact for you. The repave was about 10 years ago. So now we're finally seeing the
Oh.
fruits of that labor. The racing, it's not the best with this specific car. That's what I'm hopeful for 2022 in the Cup Series. Now, if you watch the Xfinity Series and even the Truck Series, the racing has been really decent at this track. It's not been great, but it's been good. I've been entertained by it. I've always wanted to see this race. Whenever I look at my calendar or my work schedule, it's like, all right, I got to make sure that I can watch this race because I'd rather watch it live than watch it on DVR. So
Very true.
knowing that the track has matured over the last 10 years to the state where you can run either at the bottom on the line or up by the wall, that's something that I'm happy to see and something I'm excited to see with the new car coming next year.
Speaking of the new car, let's just jump right into updates and hot takes because the first item on the agenda is talking about a next-gen test that involved veteran drivers Dale Jr., Clint Bowyer, and Tony Stewart. They all tested at Bowman Gray Stadium this Tuesday, and they had a lot to say about this. Tony Stewart was very critical of the car, which I think we can appreciate. He also had some positives. And Dale Jr., I got to find the quote here, you guys, because he said basically that this was the best setup that he's ever raced in, or it's the best thing in NASCAR that he's ever done, the car itself. So he has some positive things to say. He said the braking is going to take the most time to get used to, but the brakes work better, according to him, than the current setup. It's basically, he says it does everything good on a short track. There's more grip, more drive off. He also talked about how the test at Bowman Gray will translate to the LA Coliseum, because that's what this was supposed to be, kind of a test for that, the tire compound. And he was very honest that he was very skeptical about us going to the Coliseum. He wasn't sure how all the cars would fit on the track, how that would work. But he kind of shared in his interview with NASCAR.com that he's no longer skeptical. Clint Bowyer was kind of the same thing. He was also pretty impressed, noting the grip level on the car. And then Tony Stewart spoke about the tires as well. Adam, I don't know if you want to add to that with what Tony Stewart said.
Yeah, so Tony actually said that because Tony Stewart is Tony Stewart, he's going to be critical and he's going to give you the God honest truth.
Which we appreciate. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. I want nothing but the truth. So thank you, Smoke. If you were watching or anyone at SHR, thank you for your honesty. We love that. And to go on with that, he was critical on the tire. He said, hey, you know what? This tire might be a little too hard for running on short tracks. Maybe a softer grip level might benefit the actual on-track racing, which in my opinion, yes, less grip, more wiggly, that kind of stuff.
A little scary.
I like the little bit of danger. I don't want it to be completely, not completely safe. That would sound totally terrible, but you get the gist of what I mean. You want to have a little bit of danger there.
Right. And I don't know about you, but were you surprised that Tony Stewart was one of the drivers that was testing this week?
Let me tell you, sister, after the last year of stuff that NASCAR and Tony Stewart have been, kind of throwing back at each other, I was a little shocked. But yeah. I'm happy and grateful to see that it happened.
I think if we were going to get honest feedback from anybody, obviously the drivers have been very vocal about it, which I appreciate. I know Denny Hamlin's been vocal. I know more of the veteran drivers have been. I was expecting Tony Stewart to give us the truth, and not saying that Dale Jr. won it, not saying that Clint Bowyer won it. But obviously they're affiliated with, the broadcasting booth, and they got to hype it up a little bit, which I totally understand. No disrespect there. I understand it. But Tony's in a position where he is partially a team owner, right? And he's also doing things with other motorsports. Obviously, he's expanding past NASCAR, past the SRX series, past everything he's doing. He's going into the drag racing world and all this stuff. So he has things to say. And I honestly appreciated his honest feedback. And I hope we can get him in the car again when we get closer. I don't know if it's possible to get him racing when they test at Daytona, because that's going to be a true tell of how this car really works. We've had a lot of information, and I don't know if this concerns you, Adam, but we've had a lot of good information about what this car can do at the short tracks and at the road courses. Concerning the 1.5 miles and concerning the super speedways, we got almost close to nothing, at least that's been publicized, which has me concerned.
The 1.5 miles is obviously my biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
The super speedway racing, not so much. It truly comes down to the 1.5 mile setup, layout, that type of track, because that is the bread and butter of the schedule. That's the bread and butter of the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So seeing what we've seen in the past, not so hot. I really hope this test that's coming up at Charlotte, I really hope that everyone is brutally honest. Be brutal, be very brutal. Please do not sugarcoat. You got to tell us what's going on with it. The one thing, though, that sticks in my head is about how hot the cars are.
Yeah.
The heat has been even hotter than running the Daytona road course in the middle of August with 100% humidity, which I think the cars were getting up to 148. Apparently, running a few weeks ago when they ran the test, Denny Hamlin said the car hit like over 150.
Yeah.
That's dangerous. It's already dangerous when it's going 145 plus, but 150 for almost 3 hours. It just boggles my mind that people still don't understand that NASCAR drivers are elite athletes.
Exactly. I mean, they have to hydrate for like weeks. They have to prepare in advance. They train. They work out. They do all this stuff. They take time in the simulator. They are true athletes, and I can't even imagine sitting in an oven like that for 4 hours of like a Sunday. That's insane to me.
And when people say, "Oh, they're just sitting around driving their car, going and making left turn," no, there's so much more to it. The mental clarity and physicality that you have to take, the heart, the feet, the legs, stretching, hydration, everything. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I even when I was an undergrad at Coastal Carolina, I would stress this to a lot of my professors. Most of them were receptive to it, did some research, and realized, you know what, Mr. Lucas, you're right. They truly are athletes. So possibly, maybe this will kind of get everyone else on board with, hey, they're not just a bunch of dumb rednecks turning left. They're actually elite athletes.
I mean, they have to do risk assessment, which takes a lot of brain power when you're going that fast on an instant. And obviously, the other series like IndyCar and F1 that go faster on the track, split-second decisions can make or break, wreck, or whatever. It is an intense sport. And also, I would like to say, I love that NBC has incorporated the whoop bands into the broadcast.
Yes. I love that they have that.
Because it really shows the physicality behind it. Because even if you know it's already a physical sport, if you are aware of that, and even if you're not, you can see how like these drivers are pushing themselves. I know Eric Almirola had one on a few weeks ago, and I was like, oh my gosh, like he's crazy. He's going to hit like the max limit that you can hit like halfway through this race. And then Denny Hamlin would be so calm. And that comes with experience, but
I'm glad you brought that up about Denny. Oh my gosh, that guy is calm. Yeah. Calm under pressure in a hot race car. Yeah, there's a reason why he's always running up there in the top 5. Right. There's a reason why he's in the contention for being in the championship 4. If you can stay that calm for that many laps and being that hot,
he's good.
It's good. It's good. I have no words for it. It's that good. But back to the new car about the heat and stuff. Yeah, the driver physicality, it might become a factor if we don't figure out the cooling in this car.
And I know I mentioned a few weeks ago, I think, but with Reddick's car, they tried to put slits in the window, like in the back, and even I think like on the front windshield, just to see if that would alleviate some of the heat, kind of vent it through. I'm not sure how well that worked, but they're gonna have to really try something else because the cooling vest that the drivers wear is not going to be enough in that heat. Absolutely.
Yes.
So if we're talking about the drivers right now, we're going to definitely come back to the topic after this one of the new cars and how NASCAR is doing with, all the newness, getting audiences. But I want to talk about a quick piece of news real quick with silly season. So we have some more news about Ross Chastain and his move to Trackhouse Racing. Apparently, crew chief Phil Surgeon is going to join Chastain to move to Trackhouse for the 2022 season. So they will stay together with the new team. Anything to add to this? I think this, honestly, in my opinion, is really good. You want to have everything so similar with you when you get to this new car, especially when you move to a new team. You got to have somebody that someone who understands what you want with the car, because without that, you're starting totally fresh. And these drivers obviously have an advantage going in with a new car with a team that they already have solidified. Adam, what do you think about this? Are you happy about it?
Yeah, absolutely happy about it. I mean, let's put it this way. Basically, you're just changing the name. It's going from Chip Ganassi Racing to Trackhouse Racing. Mm-hmm. They're trying to keep as many of the puzzle pieces together, not just with the crew chief and driver combination, but the whole team and organization as a whole. They're bringing quite a few people over to the transition to Trackhouse Racing. Usually when you see new management, that happens. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes it might last for 6 months and then they start cleaning house. I know how that works in a different realm, but that's a different story for another day. So yes, I am very happy that they're staying together because I think they have great chemistry. We saw over the summer months how they were really gelling and really clicking on all cylinders. Unfortunately, they couldn't quite break the mold into getting into the top 16.
Right.
But I really think with 2022, with the new car going forward, same driver, crew chief combination, I think that Ross will have, I think the sky's the limit really for him. And Ross is one of those drivers that he's always dealing with constant change. That's been his motto since he got to NASCAR. He's either been in underfunded cars, he's been with multiple teams. Heck, the one year he made the Xfinity playoffs, he drove 2 different cars for 2 different teams. One way underfunded, one super funded. He knows how to adapt and recover and adjust. So I think the advantage is in his court.
I think I equate his experience a little bit to Daniel Suarez, and even thinking Kurt Busch too, where they've had to change teams a lot, or where they have changed teams a lot. They've moved to different equipment, different manufacturers. I think Ross, though, I think when he moves to Trackhouse, he's going to hopefully find some stability, like we said, and like we talked about. He's staying with the crew chief. Personnel's moving over. I think that's going to be good for him. And I thought he was going to win a race this year. I really did. Just seeing how he's progressed, and I'm excited to see him progress in the next gen car. I think he's, like we said, able to adapt faster, which is a skill you need to have when you move to the new car. You got to learn fast, and Ross is definitely able to move fast, learn fast, and move fast, I guess. So that's with Ross Chastain. Very excited that they're staying together. I think it is a good move. Also, having the merger at this point, maybe it wasn't planned, but also I think this is the best time to merge the 2 companies together, just because with everything new. But let's get to the main topic of discussion, because this has been one that's all over social media. They talked about this on NASCAR. F1 was in the United States this week. First off, I was excited. I was so excited. And I'm a Daniel Ricciardo fan, so just kind of seeing him really take in the USA pride and everything was so exciting.
Oh, the old honey badger, I tell you. You're right. Yeah. He's Mr. Americana. Not to interrupt you, but man, I tell you, if you want to meet a human being who has so much life and just love and fun energy, that's your guy.
Yeah, he is so good for like the sport. And I knew about him, or I guess met him in a way, like through watching Drive to Survive on Netflix, and we'll definitely talk about F1 Netflix presence. But that's where I was like, I like this guy. He's pretty cool. And that's why I'm a Daniel Ricciardo fan now. Like, he just breathes so much life into anything he's with, any organization he's with. So he's super fun to watch. And it was great to see him actually drive the number 3 Dale Sr.'s car, replica, real car. I'm not actually sure which one it was, but he got to drive it. Was it a replica or was it like the real deal?
Not entirely sure, but I think don't quote me on this, but I believe Zach Brown, he purchased that car either through Barrett Jackson or Meacham auction. So I think it's a legit RCR car from the 80s. I mean, they were kind of all over it on social media as well. RCR was retweeting it, saying, "Oh, it's great to see that 3 car back on the track." Blah blah blah, all that. So I think it was a legit car. I want to say it was, but don't quote me.
I won't quote you, but regardless,
it was awesome.
It was awesome, and just seeing how much he loved the sport and how much he really highly respected Dale Sr. and Dale Jr. obviously commented on that was just incredible. Just seeing somebody outside the United States have such a pride for our sport, I think was so cool to see.
The best thing about it though was where he was able to wear the open face helmet. The entire time he was cheesing. He was cheesing the entire time. And I was giggling. And almost crying because it's like, wow, this guy really has an appreciation for the sport. This was his childhood hero, yet he went on a completely different career path.
And just seeing how much pride he had for the sport. It was incredible.
Yeah. It also, I mean, it leaves my mind spinning and wondering, When are those off weekends in F1 next year? When are those off weekends? Are we going to, is the Xfinity series going to be at a road course? Ooh, Hey, wait, hold on. Let me give a call to,
hold on, make your call.
Hey, Junior, I'd like to come race for you. Can I run the Glen?
Is that your accent for Daniel Ricciardo?
Fantastic. Let's do it. All right, let's do it, Mike. That would be awesome to see Daniel run an Xfinity race for Dale Jr.
I think he would love it, and I honestly think that would be a really good thing for NASCAR to have him do, just because it kind of brings in some of the F1 fans to NASCAR, and they can see kind of what we're all about if they don't already know what NASCAR is all about. But it's a good way to collaborate. And so let's just get into the discussion. All right, we're gonna get critical a little bit. Obviously, this is called updates and hot takes for a reason. So we had F1, they had record crowds, right? Meanwhile, Kansas held a crowd of what looked like to be about half, maybe a little bit less. The TV ratings, however, they were in favor of NASCAR this weekend, but F1 held the most of the crowd or TV reception, carrying the demographic of ages 18 to 49, which to me now tells me that NASCAR really relies on the older crowd for TV ratings, which is not a bad thing at all. I mean, obviously, yes, NASCAR went out in the TV ratings, but at track is what concerned me. So looking at this point in the season, everyone is exhausted, right? With, it's a 36-week season. Everyone's a little tired. We're reaching the end. Obviously, 2 races left in the season, which obviously is crazy for me to say. Like, I can't believe it. It's nuts. But we have a lot of questions to go through here and just kind of contemplate. So first, I want to go through your critiques on this. I asked you all on Twitter, like, what you thought about F1 and everything and how we perceive things to be. So, well, his name is Cole Trickle. I know his name's not actually Cole Trickle, but that is your username. NASCAR is my sport of choice, always. Jeffrey said, I watched pretty much the entire F1 race before I was flipping back to NASCAR. I honestly think at this point in the season, I'm a little burnt out from NASCAR. Plus, the fact I could watch about 2 hours of racing with no commercials is a major draw. That's fair. I agree with you. Then we have 2 more from Evil Jordan Anderson. Oh, gosh. Love the username, by the way. Love it. He goes, at this point, F1 and even IndyCar over NASCAR. And then Drew Craig said F1 has a different aura of class and global relevancy that NASCAR does not have. NASCAR has clung to this notion that it's a good old boy Southern sport, and it has stunned its ability to grow and become relevant in a large number of markets. So I would say those are pretty bold, not like bold opinions, but they're honest opinions. And we're going to depict them. I want to see if we agree real quick. But first off, mentioning, if you don't know why this is a big deal, first off, they were scheduled at the same time, different networks, same time on Sunday. So you had to choose, and I didn't have a TV over the weekend, so I was like, how do I watch NASCAR? How do I watch F1 at the same time? There was a really short lightning delay in the NASCAR race, which allowed me to watch some of the F1 race, which was really good, I would say, because I love COTA. That's a little bit of my bias. But Adam, let's get into it. What about F1's culture draws people in versus NASCAR? Like, what does F1 have going for them that NASCAR can learn from, or vice versa? What does NASCAR have going for them that F1 does not?
Well, let's go ahead and turn the clock back to 2005 on what got me hooked to Formula One.
Gosh, okay. Take a trip.
2005, San Marino Grand Prix, Michael Schumacher versus Fernando Alonso. Do your homework, look it up on YouTube. One of the greatest battles between 2 of the greatest F1 drivers, in my opinion. That's what got me hooked. The racing that they did with the insane engines that they had back in the day, the ones that were like really, really high pitched, they would blow your eardrums out if you didn't have either cotton balls or ear protection in your ears. That's what got me hooked. The sound, the speed, the close action, and just the mutual respect that the entire grid has for each other, the teams, the legacies, the history. It's I don't want to say it's like it's regal with your pinky up when you're drinking your tea or anything. Not that kind of stuff, right. But it's just, there's something that for me, when I would say, oh yeah, I watched Formula One, people would raise an eyebrow like, oh, he must be hoity-toity. Oh, it's fancy. No, not necessarily. Some of the racing, it can be boring. There was a stretch in the late 2000s where there were a few seasons where it just became, oh, it's going to be Sebastian Vettel again. The midfield racing, not as close as what we've seen now this year. Even with Hamilton, a few seasons ago, not the best seasons overall, where he would win the majority of the schedule and the midfield racing would just not be there. Now, there's been a lot more battles within the midfield. The Netflix series, I think that really has tied a lot of America into it, because God knows, if you watch Netflix, everybody's going to see what's trending. Drive to Survive was trending. That's what got my girlfriend hooked on Formula One. She became a giant Charles Leclerc fan. She loved him. Well, this wasn't in Drive to Survive, but when I showed her the banana costume meme, instantly fell in love with it. Plus, he's also kind of cute, so she also had that going for her. So, yeah. So I think there's a bunch of factors that have played into people jumping on board to Formula One, jumping on board to the hype train. Now that the hype train's rolling, we already have talks of having a third race added into America. We have a second American race next year in May in Miami, the Miami Grand Prix, along with going back to COTA in October. And now there's talk of a third one, possibly for 2024 or 25. That would be awesome. Now, when it comes to NASCAR, obviously, good old boys watching them go around circles, drinking beer, blah, 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 all that stuff. It's kind of, not that way anymore as the demographics change, population ages out. The younger crowd, they like to go to what is most popular. Right now, Formula One is very popular because, one, it's on the world stage. NASCAR is very much a North American sport. I have friends that do live in Europe. They are fans of NASCAR. However, they always get me with it's the good old boy, cowboy, giddy up, yeehaw type of stuff. So there is a stigma. A lot of things have stigmas. Stigmas are bad. Stigmas cause stereotypes. I think NASCAR has an identity crisis, and we have to address it very soon.
Let me add on to that. So actually, this is kind of funny. We're talking about globalization in sport in my sport management class right now. And here's what F1 has going for it. It's a global sport, which means it's going to catch a lot of eyes. You have drivers from different countries competing in one single sport. You're going to have people supporting it from all over the world. It's going to get everyone's attention. You want to root for your driver. It's like the Olympics. Your country goes into the Olympics to compete. You're going to root for them, but you're also going to see the other competitors in there and be like, wow, they're really good. I want to follow them now. So the globalization of F1 has a lot to do with its success, right? We also have to talk about how F1's been able to adapt to the times. We've mentioned many times the Netflix show. NASCAR has kind of ditched their TV shows, kind of ditched like the side things. And I don't know why, but I think because maybe social media was not as big when they had those out and it wasn't really bringing anything new in to the sport. But F1 was able to capitalize on social media and media itself in a time where it was really catching off. They do YouTube series as well. And I think a team in NASCAR, at least, that has had the most success with this was Penske when they did the Penske games. And then Ryan Blaney with his Last Case of Emotions podcast, and obviously Corey LaJoie has his. They're able to capitalize on it and grab in followers. And I think that's why Ryan Blaney is partially so popular as well, because he really puts himself out there. Penske has done a good job as well with their social media side of things, PR side of things, and advertising their drivers, getting them out there. So that's one thing I think NASCAR, the one team, is doing really well, actually. And let's talk about what NASCAR can do differently. I have some things in my brain that might help. And I think, first off, collaboration with the other motorsports series like F1 and IndyCar, the ones that are on a bigger stage, is going to be helpful to NASCAR. Learn what they are successful at, and vice versa. F1 and IndyCar, learn what NASCAR is successful at, and do it. Listen to your fans, listen to what they like, what they don't. Now, there are rumors and speculations out there right now that NASCAR is willing to substitute tracks that aren't doing very well right now in the future for newer tracks, which I think is what we should probably do if there's tracks that are underperforming. Maybe get the Atlanta treatment, like repave it and see if it works, see if it produces better racing. Obviously, we have to trial the next gen cars. But maybe swapping out the tracks, getting some newness into the sport will be a good thing. I think also what NASCAR is doing really well right now, and what I really respect about what they're doing, is they're really promoting being inclusive. They're promoting diversity. They're promoting women in the sport. All these things are going to bring other people in from different walks of life into the sport. I think that's so good. The drivers are even hopping on board, So I think promoting that this sport is for everybody, trying to break the stigma, which is so hard to break because you see the stigma in Talladega Nights, for example, a movie that is very popular. Of course, it is a farce, or what is it? It is I don't know the word for it, but it is a take on NASCAR. It makes fun of NASCAR a little bit, which rightfully so, yeah. But when those stigmas are so strong, they are so hard to break. And so that's a little bit of an issue as well. And then also pandering to the younger audience, right? You have so many younger fans trying to get into the sport. And here's where we talked about the identity crisis, right? And here's why I understand NASCAR is in a rough spot and why it's so hard to make changes stick. Because we made changes this year. We did the Bristol Dirt Race. We went to COTA. We tried to mix things up and it wasn't perceived totally well. And I think a lot of it has to do with COVID and we weren't able to try things out. But there's the older fans. They like a certain set of racing, and maybe they're not seeing it right now as things are trying to change. There are the newer fans that like a certain way things are done. They have shorter attention spans. I'm guilty of that. Shorter races might be helpful, just to keep people engaged, and even a shorter season. I know this will affect sponsorship. I know this affects money that the tracks make. But I think this 36 race season, though it can be fun, I feel like the first 10 races are important and the playoffs are important. Everything in between, the points seem to not matter until you're right up to like 2 races before the playoffs, and then it's go time. So making the seasons shorter to raise the stakes a little bit, keep everyone on their toes, kind of like what F1 and IndyCar have. So you have to really take into consideration your younger audience and your older audience, but that's so hard to do when your older audience has been so solid from the start.
And to add on to about the schedule, if we're going to continue with 36 races, we need to have 36 unique tracks.
Yes.
When I mean unique, we don't need to go to Atlanta twice. We don't need to go to, well, we used to go to Texas twice, but we still go there twice technically. Even though it's an all-star race, you're still racing, still a trip. Bristol, the dirt race, I didn't like it. Go to a real dirt track. Either keep 2 Bristols or go make either the spring race your main event or the fall, well, it used to be the night race. Let's call it the night race. Make that your marquee event. That's something that IndyCar and Formula One specifically have. They have marquee events. They only go to tracks usually one time. That's the big draw. You have the Indianapolis 500. It's the one time that the oval is used. You have the Monaco Grand Prix. It's the one time the entire country is shut down for one race. These kind of things. Now, I mean, heck, you can use NASCAR. There's one example or there's a couple examples, but I'll use one because it's one of my home tracks. You have the Coke 600. That's a marquee event. So I think NASCAR needs to maybe hop on board with the marquee events. Even with Darlington, when it came back to the schedule, it became a marquee event. Now, granted, I love going to Darlington twice because it's not that far from where I live. And 2, I love the racing there. But if I were to lose the spring date, but keep the Labor Day race, which is the marquee event, I would be absolutely okay with that. Less is more.
And I think when you talk about making the races probably one race, making unique tracks, NASCAR is also looking to expand its market. So I think it would be really good if they went to different tracks because they can go all across the United States. They can grab audiences from all over the country and not have people travel to one section of the country for 36 weekends out of the year. And obviously, yes, we go to the East Coast, West Coast, we go down south, we go all the way up to New York. So there is movement with where these races are, but if you had them at different tracks, yes, it would bring an appeal. It would also help people who don't really like to travel that much or travel very far, find races that are accessible to them. The final thing I want to talk about here, big topic with NASCAR is the playoff format. And just to preface this, first off, yes, we're being very critical of NASCAR right now and their format. I get that we are. But for me, and I think I can speak for Adam too, that does not mean we do not like the sport. So we love the sport, and usually when you love something, you can be critical of it. You have a reason to really fight for the sport and what you want. So that's why we're being critical of it. But Adam, do you want to give your opinions first? Do you have opinions about the playoff format?
Yeah, no, I have opinions. I have opinions about this. So it has to do with the 36 race schedule. 36 races, that's a lot of races. However, if you look at before the playoffs started, we had a pretty competitive battle for the top spot. Kyle Larson, Denny Hamlin, still coming down to the wire. What do we see across the board in our other respected racing series? Very close battles between maybe the top 2, 3, maybe even top 5 points positions, all with the shot going into the last few races. One thing's different: no playoffs. I remember as a kid, up until 2003, NASCAR used to do that. We had some surprise champions. We also had some that ran away with it, like Jeff Gordon in 2001, and then in the late 90s when he went on his streak in dominance. But then you also had the battle in 2002 between Mark Martin and Tony Stewart, which came down to the last race. So for me personally, leave playoffs to stick and ball sports. And can I add one more point about the playoffs?
Yes.
I was totally okay and fine with the original chase for the cup. It reset the top 10. Everyone was equal.
Mm-hmm.
And then you raced the last 10 races. No gimmicks, no eliminations, just purely racing. That was okay. Then it became a little too gimmicky.
Now, I think, and I am a quote unquote newer fan, I really started to pay attention to the sport in 2016. So I have a little bit of a different perspective.
A little bit of a gap year from 2003 to 2016.
Just a little bit. But I think some type of playoff format might be necessary to kind of get involvement and engagement from the fans. However, I'm going to overhaul it a bit. Do not reset the points after every round. For me, a little bit, it makes the playoffs a little illegitimate slightly, because you could have a driver that dominates one round and then is really bad during one race in the next round and they're done. Or you can have a driver that was really good all season, get down, like we saw with, I'm going to keep bringing this up every podcast, but what we saw with Kevin Harvick and Denny Hamlin, they were the most dominant drivers all season. They had a few really bad playoff races and they were done. And for me, that wasn't fair. You know, it wasn't fair to their crew, to their team, who raced really well during the season. But at the same time, some drivers are going to peak during the playoffs when the pressure is high, and some drivers just aren't. And maybe you do sometimes, but just the luck isn't in your favor. So I would say that stage-wise, for me personally, I hate stage cautions, stage breaks. I think it really chunks out the race in a bad way. If you want to do stage points, maybe keep the stages, but just don't stop the race. At a certain point during the race, if you really want to keep that in there, just divvy out points. It keeps the racing intense, but it doesn't stop everything. That's another thing. I don't know how you format that. I don't know how you fix that, but I'm not a huge fan of stages. Last thing I'm going to mention here, the win to get in thing. Adam, I want to hear your opinion on the win to get in format, because I personally don't like it. I want to see true dominance throughout the season, a really good performance throughout the season, and that gets you into the playoffs. Not you were lucky with one win and congratulations, you took a spot from another driver.
Yeah, I think to get into the playoffs, depending on how many people we're going to have in the playoffs, if we're going to take half the field, then this question is so hard to answer, because I have so much raging in my head about how we shouldn't do this or we should do that. It's almost like, I don't know. Wins, yes, but you get seasons where, like this season, for example, we almost had all 16 slots full in the first half of the season. And then
Right.
Kyle Larson went on his winning rampage.
As he should and did.
Yes. So, I mean, a win and in, I say let's just stick back to the points. If you're in the top 12, you make it point-wise. Wins are great, but let's look at everyone who's won the Daytona 500 the past few years.
Right.
Performance, not so great throughout the season. It's almost like it's an unlucky thing to get. If you win the Daytona 500, you're in the playoffs, but now you have from February until September a lot of time that you can either prove yourself like, oh yeah, we're going to be a legitimate contender, we're going to keep winning, blah, 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 or you might just throw an anchor and sink. I don't like that you're winning, you're in. I really like performance. I love performance in motorsports. All of it, not just NASCAR, not just F1, not just IndyCar, not even NHRA. I love to see teams be able to overcome and prove their worth. Show your respect, show your work. I don't like the winning in.
Yeah, definitely agree. 100% every statement you made. Make the points matter. Definitely make them matter again. Make us be on the edge of our seats, you know? Bring back some of the old format, because that's what the older fans like, and I think the newer fans will like it too. Just give it a chance. Obviously, we're not professionals. We just give our opinions here.
we're also, this isn't whose line is it anyway, where the points don't matter. I want the points to matter.
Yes. Okay, first off, I love that you mentioned that reference one, because that was what I was thinking in my head. So thank you for bringing that to life.
Yes. Thank you, Drew Carey. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cleveland rocks.
But like, seriously, make the points matter. And I love, honestly, during the playoffs, it is my pride and joy to see the points go up and down, like after every lap. It keeps me on the edge of my seat, and that's why I love it so much. There's such anticipation. But bring that into the regular season. See what you can do. Tweak the format a little bit in the future. Obviously, next season, I would say it has to be set in stone by this point of how your format's going to be, because there's a lot of change. Don't change too much next season. And I know we have a few new tracks. That's good for now. But definitely listen to the fans, NASCAR. Try to listen and see what you can learn from the other motorsports. But honestly, just, try some new things. You never know. We might like it. My great grandma used to say, her quote was, try it, you might like it. It pertains to food, though. But it can pertain to anything else. So NASCAR, try it, you might like it. I don't know. But we love the sport. But we are critical of it because we love it. Signing off on that note. So with that said, let's dive into this coming weekend, previewing the Xfinity 500 at Martinsville Speedway, the most anticipated race in the playoffs and almost probably of the year, in my opinion. But let's start off with your track facts. The track length of Martinsville Speedway is 0.526 miles long. The race length is 500 laps or 263 miles. Stages 1 and 2 are 130 laps, and the final stage is 240 laps. So those were your track facts. Now it's time to line up the field. Of course, no surprise, Kyle Larson has the pole this weekend, and right next to him in the lineup is Chase Elliott, rounding out the first row. Then we have Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Kyle Busch, Ryan Blaney, Kevin Harvick, and Kurt Busch, rounding out your top 10. Finally, we have to line up the odds for this weekend. Starting off with the last driver to win at the track, no surprise, Martin Truex Jr. Then the active driver with the most wins at this track is actually Denny Hamlin with 5 wins. Then the active driver with the best average finish at the track is still Denny Hamlin with a 9.71 average finishing position. The team with the most track wins is Hendrick Motorsports with 25 of what I counted. And finally, the manufacturer with the most track wins in total is Chevrolet with 49. So those were your track facts, driver stats, and the lineup for this weekend. Now let's go into talking about the points a little bit more in depth. I know we talked about them from the race last weekend, how they stacked up, but let's just go more in depth with it. Now, the drivers below the cutoff line, again, are Blaney, Truex, Keselowski, and Logano. Blaney -1, Truex -3, Keselowski -6. They're all in a position where they can work themselves back up. Maybe. I know Chase Elliott and Denny Hamlin are above by quite a bit. And then Joey Logano -26. He's going to need to put in the work this weekend, but not impossible. But let's talk about drivers that are in danger. Obviously, Joey Logano is one of them. Is there anyone else that we're fearing this weekend?
Of course, we have to fear for our boy, Mr. Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
Let me just be straight with y'all. Okay, hear me out. As much as I want him to be in the Final Four, I think the odds are stacked against him if he gets into the Final Four. So it would almost be a mercy killing, per se, if he doesn't make the Final Four. I hate saying that. I'm so sorry, Blaney Nation, but it's almost like, do I want to die today or do I want to die next week? I don't know. It's the danger zone. Maybe it's the danger zone talking to me. I don't know. But he is in the danger zone.
Well, yeah, that might be, but a stat, something to keep in mind. We're fearing for Penske. Obviously, they're below the line right now. We're going to be scared. But we saw the track facts, right? We saw that Hamlin has the best average finish at the track. But right behind him is Ryan Blaney. He has 0 wins. Then we have Keselowski with 2 wins and Logano with 1 win. If we look at the average, just starting at 2018 alone, Truex obviously has the best average finish. Then it's another Team Penske lineup that follows. We're switching the order a little bit. It's Logano, Blaney, then Brad with the best average finishes since 2018. So statistically, they are good at this track. Blaney does not have the wins. And unfortunately, though, even when we went to Kansas last weekend, he had a really good race being put together until he was wrecked out. And that honestly killed his momentum a little bit, or a lot of it. So I'm concerned for Team Penske because obviously not all of them can make it into the championship 4. Not all of them. I will say, though, I think Ryan Blaney does have a shot. So I don't necessarily agree with you when we say the odds are stacked against him. But he is probably the one on that team I'm most concerned about. Maybe Brad Keselowski takes the cake on that, but he's also shown improvement these past few weeks.
True.
But yeah,
I agree with you about Brad. He has stepped his game up. He really has stepped his game up in these playoffs.
he hasn't. I don't know what that was about because, I mean, obviously we know he's going to a different team. I don't think Brad is a driver to give up. He's not a driver to just like be like, oh, I'm going to a new team. Like, no need to put in effort. He is always just 100% doing the best he can. However, I'm not sure what necessarily went wrong with his season because it wasn't a bad season for Brad. It was just very mediocre, not something that I'm totally used to seeing with him. But during these playoffs, I think he's realizing he is getting closer to that championship 4. And he is like, I was giving them 100%, 101%. I need to go up to 200%. And their team has clicked. Obviously, they've clicked a little late, and that puts them in a points deficit. But like we said, he is not that far behind of getting above the line. So we'll have to see. But speaking of making it into the championship 4, you got to make it through all the chaos. How crazy do we think this race is going to actually be?
Well, thankfully, it's on Halloween of all days. So I think things are going to get very spooky.
Oh, yeah, it's gonna be insane. I have a bad feeling that we're gonna see a lot of wrecks. We might see some redemption, possibly. We might also see some angry people, angry drivers. Hopefully not too much chaos because I want this to be. I love the Martinsville race in the playoffs. I absolutely love it. One of my favorites. But I do not want to see a parking lot of cars at the end of the race. I want to see tough racing but clean racing. I don't want to see all these wrecks.
I think it'll be fairly clean to start with. I don't think we're going to be seeing anyone taking each other to the cleaners, but I think tension, just like a rubber band, you start pulling it, what happens? It gets tighter, tension's building. So as the rubber band stretches out, the tension rises, tempers start to flare. I bet you that last 100 laps are going to be one hell of a last 100 laps.
It's short track racing. Tempers
Absolutely.
Are wild. Tempers are wild, but here's the thing, though. What are the keys to winning this race? You have to go through the chaos. That's definitely one. You have to have no mistakes. What else can we have if these drivers are going to listen to the podcast, which who knows? They might. I don't know what they listen to, but what could we offer advice to them as non-drivers and just spectators of the sport to win the race?
Stay up front, and if you're not in the lead, be able to see the leader, because if you can't see him and you do see cars in front of you, they're lap down cars. The leader is getting farther away from you. So track position is going to be key.
Track position, absolutely, because obviously at the short track, you can get a lap behind really fast. If you go to pit road for one mistake, you could get 3 laps behind in an instant because everything moves so fast. So track position, also something to strategy. This goes with pit stops because that is going to determine your race at these short tracks. We saw it play in Chase Elliott's favor, obviously, last year when he won and the odds were all against him. Strategy worked out. Those cautions fell at the right time for him. But we also have to keep up with adjustments as the sun goes down during the day because this race starts at, I believe, 3 o'clock. The sun's going to go down and we're going to see these cars start to get a little temperamental as the temperature changes. So you have to make sure you go in with a good setup and you're able to stay on top of it, adjust a little bit earlier maybe than you're supposed to so you can be prepared for when it cools down during the night because that will kill your race if you are not prepared for that. Adam, so that's how the points shake up. A little nervous for some of our drivers, but let's go into our race winning picks, starting with our garage picks. Now, if you don't know how it works on the channel, here's how it goes. Garage picks. Not what you see on your NASCAR fantasy lineup. For us over here at Above the Yellow Line, it means a driver you think might win, but you're not too confident in. Maybe a dark horse win. Could mean many things, but someone that you don't have as your central winning pick, someone you're not 100% on. So with that said, Adam, who is your garage pick and why?
So I'm going to stick with the Penske Brigade, and I'm going to go with the driver we have not mentioned. I'm going to go with Joey Logano for my garage pick. I think he's got a decent shot at being able to maneuver his way to the Final Four. He always somehow seems to find a way to it. So, hey, last chance to dance. Let's do it.
I think that is a smart move, actually, when the chips are not in his favor, the cards are not in his favor. Joey Logano seems to somehow make it work. So a really good pick, but I think mine's better. I'm going to be real honest with you.
Oh, really? Okay, then.
Yeah, so I have Chase Elliott as my garage pick. Now, obviously, won this race when all the cards were not in his favor last year at Martinsville, and then he won the championship. So I think Chase Elliott has a good shot. I think he's able to do what needs to be done. He's also in a good points position right now. I'm probably going to jinx it. We say this like 5 million times on the show every week, but regardless, Chase Elliott as my garage pick. Going to our race winning picks though, where it counts. Adam, I have a feeling that we're just going to cut to the chase on this one because I think we agree. Do we agree? Let's say it on 3. On the count of 3. Ready?
Yeah. Wait. Hold. Ready?
What?
Okay. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
Martin
Martin
Truex Jr. Well, doesn't it work?
Truex Jr. Let's do it.
Okay, great. So we chose Martin Truex Jr. We're
Yes.
not coordinated, but
No.
that's fine. So why are you choosing Martin Truex Jr.? I think it's obvious, but indulge. Give me some reasons.
Yes. So obviously, one here in the springtime. He's just really good at Martinsville. The real kicker, though, for me, which is now making me a little bit nervous with who I picked for the championship. If he wins this race, he points his way to the Final Four, which is at Phoenix, another track that Martin Truex Jr. has had really great success at. If I'm Kyle Larson in the 5 team, I would really, really, really be concerned if they win.
You know, I actually think this season, Martin Truex Jr. is a driver that people are counting out. He kind of reminds me of Joey Logano in a situation where he is the dark horse. He's not someone that people expect. He hasn't really been in the spotlight a lot this season. But when you get him to Phoenix, if he goes to Phoenix fighting for the championship, he is dangerous. And I personally counted him out in my bracket. I've said this before. I didn't have him making it into the round of 8. I just thought he would be a shock pick that wouldn't make it through, but he's been very consistent. Obviously, his points right now, very tight on points, but he could actually make it. But those are our winning picks. Let's go to the rest of the above the yellow line crew. Dom has his garage pick, actually has Martin Truex Jr., so still sticking with the theme of Martin Truex. Then Zach in the garage has Ryan Blaney. I think that is a wise pick if it works in his favor. But their win picks, Dom has Kyle Busch. Good luck, Dom. You know my track record with Kyle Busch this year hasn't been good. And then Zach has Denny Hamlin winning the race at Martinsville. But guys, those are our race winning picks. What are yours? Comment them down below. And with that, we are done with today's episode of Above the Yellow Line. Thank you all so much for watching the show where we talk all about the NASCAR Cup Series. And Adam, as always, it is such a joy to have you on the show. All the analogies, all the insight, I greatly appreciate it. So thank you so much.
And thank you for having me on the show again. I'm looking forward to the championship week next week. I'm looking forward to this week, obviously, and for 2022.
Absolutely. And obviously, content during the off season, I'll have you on the show for that as well. We're going to have a blast during the off season. But in the meantime, you know the drill. Adam, where can the viewers find you outside of Above the Yellow Line?
Y'all can follow me on Twitter at alucas9166. Always throwing up some good racing knowledge, little nuggets here and there, and also some football, because that's truly my background. Motorsports is my passion and my true love. So give me a follow on there. I'd greatly appreciate it.
And to follow more of us on Above the Yellow Line, make sure you check out my Twitter page for NASCAR updates and fan questions, and our Instagram page to know when we post and some behind the scenes of the show as well. Finally, check out the Podium Finish for weekly and daily interviews, recaps, and previews, and much more from the world of motorsports and beyond. It is such a fun time working there, so make sure you check them out. But before you check out those links in the description below, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, share this with your friends and family. And guys, thank you all so much for your support. And until next time, we'll see ya.